You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast.
You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. My name is Shawn Wilkie, and along with my awesome co-host, we interview the innovators in this space every week. I guess Merry Christmas probably belongs here. And Ivan, over to you.
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, whatever everybody celebrates. And before I jump into the bio of our guest, I guess, Shawn, why don't you tell us how did you meet the guest and invite here?
Yeah, that's a great idea. So we'll leave him as a mystery until you introduce him. But we met on the floors of London Vet. He's been a longtime listener of our show. We talked about innovation. We sat down and had a conversation. I said, well, you're walking the show floors and I don't have time to do that and seeing all kinds of innovative companies. Why don't we do an episode of the podcast as kind of like a wrap up or a roundup for any innovative companies that you've talked to at the London Vet Show back in November. So that's how we got here. We had a nice little chat and brainchild idea came and here we are a couple months later having a conversation on the podcast. So I'll let you do the intro.
Why don't we do one episode without introducing the name of the person? Just kidding. So Dr. Nick Lloyd. So Dr. Nick Lloyd brings over 2 decades of experience as a dedicated veterinary surgeon specializing in small animal care. Based in South Devon, UK, he not only ran his own clinic, but also made significant contributions to the field as a founder of the Vet XML Consortium. Dr. Lloyd is a current board member and past president of the Society of Practicing Veterinary Surgeons, actively supports clinics in non-clinical aspects with a personal focus on integrating tech solutions. In the last 5 years, he has seamlessly transitioned into the realm of IT consultancy, offering expertise in practice management, system design, and development, particularly for corporate groups. Dr. Lloyd, thank you for finding the time. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Steve, for having me, and Merry Christmas to everyone.
So, can you tell us what Vet XML Consortium was doing?
So, the idea between the consortium was to try and bring different parts of the industry together in order that, in my mind, the guys in the clinics could just get on with their jobs, that the PMS in front of them would link to the systems out there and decrease the amount of paper they had to use, decrease the different types of software solutions they had to use, and make it much more seamless. And the idea was to produce an open data standard that was available for all to use.
Well, Nick, as far as I learned in the last 20 years in our industry, that what you were trying to accomplish is impossible. So you can't put together technology in this bloody industry to work seamlessly. So how far did you feel like you advanced in that? And do you have the secret sauce for everybody that you're going to disclose today, that you need to have these 3 tools that integrate seamlessly together, pass the data, and can roll it up to the corporate level without any problems?
I didn't realize this episode was about a utopian paradise that doesn't exist, but that's great. Let's talk about that.
The utopian paradise combined with lots of bashing my head on many brick walls. So I think there was a lot of success in the early days before the major corporations came across the UK, because I could have conversations with smaller companies who MDs had both the knowledge and the power to make decisions. And there was a golden window that these guys were small enough to be and close enough to the clinics to really want to help them and not to be caught in the power politics of the bigger groups. And about 10 years ago, that changed. So we had 3 projects that really took off. One was the direct insurance claims. So from the PMS, they could click a button, they could select the items, click a button. It didn't matter what PMS they were on. It didn't matter what insurance company it was going to. It was a common format, and it went between the 2. And that was a huge value to the clinic. So that went well. Microchip registration, we timed that with a change of the legislation. It became mandatory to chip all dogs in the UK. So there was an external motivating force to make that seamless. And that worked well. And then finally was lab results, bringing lab results back into your PMS in a standard form. Again, that worked pretty well. But it was the insurance one that did the best, and I think because in reality it had a good business case behind it.
Yeah, it makes tons of sense, and it's interesting because the US market is kind of the opposite of the UK market, where it's more private clinics and less corporate clinics. But the same problem exists on this side of the pond, and nobody's quite solved it. So I feel like we could have an entire episode about that, and maybe we should, because it's a real problem. But I do want to kind of stay at the task at hand, because I know that we'll run out of time. And let's start going through some of these companies that you came across at London Vet that you think are innovative, because it'd be great to kind of find out about what they are, and then maybe we can have individual episodes with these founders.
Okay, cool. I'll run through some of the things I came across, and you can kind of feedback and jump in as you think, oh, that's interesting. I mean, it's a huge show, and you never have enough time. You've got to think, well, what am I going to look at? And so before anyone starts shouting at the podcast, saying, well, you didn't talk about my thing, I'll be honest, the areas I didn't touch. So I didn't really look at the AI and radiology stuff that's going on there. That's not an area of my expertise. I'm looking forward to coming through, but I don't know enough about it to comment. So I didn't get caught in a sales pitch for those guys. I didn't really look at any of the fancy new drugs. Again, I was really focusing on the tech. I was tempted by the new oral treatment we've got for diabetes that's coming through here in the UK, but I've not done my CPD yet on that. So I'll learn about that in the future. And I didn't spend a long time looking at wearables, because my gut feeling was there wasn't anything brilliantly new at the show this time. So it's an area I'm very excited by. I think maybe next year there'll be a bit more there, but I didn't focus on it. So those areas I didn't look at. Big picture, the usual suspects were there from the big corporate groups. Not a lot of new stuff, I would say, from the big guys. There was some new stuff from the smaller guys, and I guess that frustrates me, because if you want to be innovative, it's really hard in the clinic, because you end up getting all these different solutions. Oh, these guys are doing a great thing. You want to get this bit of tech into your practice, but then it doesn't work with anything. As we were talking about before, data standards, nothing works together. So you're trying to be an innovative, cutting-edge clinic, and you're stumbling over the technology because it doesn't join up with the technology you already have. And the big guys are plodding along with incomplete solutions. So let's start with clinical tech. There was a company called FluorityQ that is looking at urine sampling. So they've got some biomarkers that are attached. You add them into the urine sample, you put it through a machine. Those markers attach to different bacteria that are there, and in 15 minutes' time, you get a nice analysis of which bacteria and the quantity of those bacteria are present in that urine sample, which I think is a good step forward for kind of, do I want to use an antimicrobial or not? And which antimicrobial should I be using?
It's interesting, because more and more of those innovations are finding their way on the podcast. And I think a big interesting thing that's happened since COVID is this idea of take-home tests. It's kind of fascinating, not just clinical testing, but tests that are shipped at home. So it doesn't surprise me that there's another company over there that's doing something innovative with urine testing.
Yeah. There was a company called Bio9, which I got really mixed feelings about, and they were using sort of machine learning technology they're taking fecal samples and then using machine learning and imagery to work out what's in that sample, and they produce a sort of a personalized report on that fecal sample and the gut flora of that animal. And we know, I'm convinced the gut flora is very important. I'm convinced we don't know enough about it, and it can be really significant going forward. But they had a system where, okay, so you get this report, and then because of that report, you have a whole selection of different supplements you could buy into to kind of make your dog joints better, healthier, whatever it is. I wasn't convinced yet by the science behind it, but I can see the clients loving it. Or a certain section of clients, absolutely, the health conscious clients buying into that. So I was like, well, that's interesting. I can see that growing, and they're kind of at the cutting edge there. But I wasn't convinced by the science.
It would work well in California. They like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I can believe that. So that was Bio9. So here's from their website. You get a precision supplement plan that's unique as your dog to support their unique needs. I thought, well, I'll have some of that.
It's the humanization of the pet. This is a real thing. It's happening everywhere. So sounds like an interesting company to watch.
Okay, so then looking sort of more from a general tech point of view, I had a chat to a really nice guy he does some kind of transcription software. I can't remember his name or his company, but he was quite a nice chap. And no, Shawn, of course, I was talking about you. We had a great chat, and I'm a great fan of using dictation software in my consulting. I still consult 1 day a week. I spent about 5 years where I moved away from consulting, actual clinical consulting. I found I got a bit rusty, and my advice wasn't quite so from the coalface. So now I try to blend my IT consulting. We're still spending 1 to 2 days a week actually in the consulting room, still meeting the clients, and I love that. I love that. So I use transcription software in my consulting room, and I plan to trial Talk2 in the new year. That's the agreement, isn't it? But I think I'm really excited about this area. It was really good to see you there, Shawn, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that changes what happens in the consulting. Because I know it has completely changed the way I consult now. I now spend only 10% of the time I used to spend in front of the computer. I have much more eye contact with my client. I have much more clarity as to what I'm finding on the dog, because I have to have that clarity to transcribe to the client, to the software, but the client benefits from that as well. So yeah, so transcription software, Talk2, very excited about what they're bringing to the marketplace. Good to see them there. There was a company called Gecko Vet. I don't know if you guys have heard them. It's a triage software. I looked at their website beforehand, and I thought, oh, that's quite nice. You can enter in all your clinical symptoms, and it then takes you through a triage system of possible diagnoses and then treatment protocols on the back of that. And I think that sort of software potentially linked in with the transcription software and symptom coding is kind of going to make a huge impact in those consulting rooms. I wouldn't use Gecko Vet myself, but I can see as a young vet, it'd be a great sort of thing to lean on if you've not got a senior vet to call on for a quick query.
Yeah, they're great. We've had them on the show, and they've definitely got lots of time into what they've built, and I think they continue to advance it. So we're interested to see what happens with those guys as they kind of continue to move things forward.
Looking at vet software, actually in the clinic, the usual suspects were there, but the one that caught my eye as a new entrance to the marketplace was a company called Looper, and they're taking. Initially, I looked and thought, that's a shame you're entering. So many people are struggling in this marketplace because there are so many software companies out there. But actually, I after a while reflecting, I thought they may actually hit a sweet spot because there's a lot of legacy software systems out there, and there aren't that many sort of new cutting edge systems coming through. I think they may, in a couple of years' time, they may hit a nice sweet spot there as the old systems fall away. So, what did I like about them? The client app really integrated into the software solution. So it wasn't, oh, we're going to have a client app as an add-on, or we're going to have a third-party client app. Actually, we're going to make the client app seamlessly integrate with what you're using in the clinic. So the comms between the clinic and the client app were seamless. And they're starting to use ChatGPT within their flows to really give summaries of history and various other things. So I think, again, having sort of that AI ChatGPT coming in at a foundational level rather than being added in by which other systems are going to have to do, having to add them in as extras. If they're designing the system from ground up to use that tool, I think that could be quite exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been pretty quiet in the PMS space, like in the practice management software space. There's been relatively no new entries and a lot of consolidation. So it is neat to see a couple of new ones kind of show up from time to time, because it still doesn't feel like the problem's solved.
No, and I want to see Digitail, who I think they've skipped the UK market and they're in the US, but I'd like to actually see what they're doing in the UK, them to come to the UK as well. But so they weren't there. I was hoping to see them. So that's general tech and clinical tech. Yes, client relationship. This is something I'm quite passionate about. So I'm one of those. I'm a vet who loves the interaction with the client. I love the chat with the client, perhaps more than the sort of the animal side of it. I love that relationship and helping those clients communicate clearly with the clients and take them from a place of confusion to a place of understanding. So really into how can we communicate with our clients better? Because if we can do that better, they're going to arrive at the clinic in a better state of mind, and it's going to be less stressful for the clinicians. And asynchronous communication, is that a big thing over in the US, or is it?
That's huge.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
no, it's the main sort of. I feel like that's the main way to do it these days, because you can't just handle enough phones. And we use Digitail actually in my clinics, and then we started off with the text more than phone leverage communication. And then that is such a nicer way to do it, because you just essentially can handle multiple conversations at the same time. You're never interrupted with the phone call when you're dealing with a client. So yeah, absolutely. So what did you see new in that space?
So there's two main people talking about in the one was Pets app, who's that you guys know about, and another one with Digital Practice, who take a different angle on it, and they've both got their slightly different takes, and I think they're both brilliant products. I think it seems to be struggling in the UK to take off. I've been to a number of clinics, and some of them do have these products installed, but they don't really use them. They've got them in the system, but they haven't really put into their workflows, and I think that's such a missed opportunity. Pets app we're talking about, they've got their AI co-pilot, where the AI drafts a response for the team. So it reads what the client's saying and then produces a suggested response that you can the team can kind of just check, go, yeah, that's fine, and then hit send. So obviously that's faster responses. It's more efficient. And there was a recent GP survey that showed actually the AI was more empathetic than GPs. So potentially
that's in the UK though, right? That's not in the US.
So I think with that, I think I will potentially always be more empathetic than the AI on my best day. But when I'm tired, when I'm stressed, when I'm busy, my choice of language, choice of words is not going to be as good for those asynchronous communication moments. And potentially that's the AI just doesn't get tired. It makes other errors. It can create rubbish, but it doesn't get tired. So there's pros and cons. That's quite interesting. The Digital Practice, they're bringing their sort of a drug ordering portal. They've got a nice hub where you can do the payments. You've got multi-channels. You've got your text. You've got your WhatsApps. You've got your Facebook messengers all in one place. Client information, client history, and it's a nice hub where everything you need for that client relationship outside that clinical world is there. It's great for receptionists.
We had them here on the podcast. I really like their product, and I like merger of the different systems, that the incoming communications, and then the nice summary. So yeah, I like that.
And it is really interesting too to see, like, conversely what PetsApp is doing with their own app that they brand for the clinic, and just the interaction. They've definitely taken different routes, and it appears that they're both growing and doing quite well. So it is fascinating to see the differences in approach, but basically working towards the same kind of common goal of just freeing up that telephone line and allowing people to get more done in the same amount of time.
Yeah. They're both great products, both taking a slightly different take. Who else I see? Oh, so going again, AI was there again. AI for Pet. So this company's called AI for Pet, or Vetology, and they allow the clients to have they've got an app. The clients use their camera and they can hold it up to a skin lesion or a problem with the eye, and the AI then looks at that lesion, produces a heat map, and then sends the client back a list of differentials as to what it might be, to then sort of initiate a conversation with the vet, which I thought, that's interesting. I probably wouldn't have it as a standalone app, but I could see if somebody else, maybe like Pets app, put that into their app, then as a kind of, then that would sort of bond the clients even more into that ecosystem. And I think I tried it out, and it wasn't quite good enough for me, but I guess it got the clients interested, which would then potentially initiate the call. So even if the information it gave was not the right diagnosis, generally the default was phone your vet. So which is fine, because the clients take the photo, they've had a little think about it. They're going to go to Dr. Google anyway. to think about, and then they phone you. So I'm not too worried about it, but it's not quite there yet, sort of from a diagnostic point of view. But you can see where things are going, and that's quite exciting.
Yeah, I think that the whole general trend towards AI or computers doing some of our work is this is a reality that's here to stay, and it's only going to be more and more as time goes on. So it is
I'll drop
fascinating.
you a couple of things that I was disappointed. I thought were missing from the show. I was like, where's the patient workflow? Where's the patient workflow systems, the hospital systems? Instinct wasn't, it's the US side. Plexi sadly is no longer with us. With Vet Radar is there under the IDEX and banner. SmartFlow is there still under the IDEX banner. But I think it's such a massive opportunity for clinics to have a good hospital system or inpatient system. And just not at the show, not there at the show, and it saves money, makes things work better, paperless, all that, and not there.
Yeah, there's lots of room for innovation in this industry still, which is pretty cool that there's so many things happening. But Dr. Nick, we ran out of time. Like every single other week, we need an hour and a half, I think, for an episode like this, especially because you didn't even cover all of the areas. But we like to wrap up every show the same way. So I get a couple questions for you. First is a YouTube video, TED Talk, something that you found interesting in your time in the profession these years that you'd like to share with our guests.
So it's an audiobook I listened to fairly recently, and it's not veterinary, but it's a book by someone called Catherine Ashton, and it's called And Then What? And she represented the EU in the early 2010s, and she was involved in the Iran nuclear deal, Serbia, Kosovo, lots of peace treaties. And I was just reflecting on when I was trying to bring parties together, about the different agendas and looking for people's different agendas when you're bringing people to a meeting and you're trying to get a decision point, trying to understand what do they want from that, what they're meeting, what's their agenda, how to. So rather than I'm very simple. I'm like, okay, let's just do what's best. Let's just very altruistic. Let's just do what's best, and that's easy to do if you're an independent practitioner and you're not tied into a big corporate group where you've got other things tying at you. So it was I found that very interesting when she was bringing people together who had done quite bad things to each other, and facilitating them coming to a common point of understanding and moving things forward. So I found that quite interesting when I'm trying to bring people into the same room to move, for example, data standards forward again.
That's awesome.
That's an interesting one. I'm interested in hearing that one. The second question that we usually ask, is there someone in the industry that you met recently or just an old friend of yours that you would recommend to be on this podcast?
So, a guy called Jack Pepler from a company called Veterinary IT Services. I know when I was in clinic, I was trying to solve all the IT solutions myself, and because I had a bit of knowledge, that's a bit dangerous, but I tried to do a lot of it myself. And there was no one I could find who could really help me. And I think Jack's doing a great job providing IT support with a real veterinary focus across the industry.
Thank you so much for listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. If you want to hear about our new episodes, please follow us on any social media channel. Also, you can check out our website at veterinaryinnovationpodcast.com. See you next week.